HCAM programming is supported by viewers like you. Thank you.
And by Angels Garden Center, growing in Hopkinton since 1957.
And by Hopkinton Drug, an integrative pharmacy and community partner since 1954, providing customized compounded medication in their on-site lab, nutritional supplements, and a knowledgeable staff. Hopkinton Drug, believing food, exercise, and community, along with an integrative approach to medicine, can help you achieve your wellness goals.
This is HCAM TV.
Thank you, John.
Do we need luck?
Oh, you guys got it.
Through the chair, we're live on HCAM TV.
I'd like you to welcome each other to this all-committee meeting here in Hopkinton, Massachusetts, this evening, November 2nd, 2022, where we have our directors and leaders of our staff gathered, as well as our members of our committee and members of our Board of Select Board. I'd like to invite Norman, our town manager, to give a few opening words.
John, thank you so much. On behalf of the town senior leaders, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to you all, our town residents who are watching, elected leaders, chairs of appointed boards and committees, as well as our town staff. I see you and I welcome you to our third all hands meeting. Tonight, once again, we gather in the spirit of working together. As the saying goes, good collaboration amplifies strength. Tonight's meeting is the third in which department heads and staff present their department's vision and big goals. We spent the last 2 months working together to develop tonight's agenda and presentations. You may ask, what is different this year? This year, each department will highlight what good looks like. In addition, you may hear a few exciting human stories about the quality services provided to town residents, businesses, and visitors. As you listen, I challenge all of you to pay closer attention to the interdependency in the different departments' goals and efforts. Further, building upon our work in the past years, you will notice a tighter and more precise alignment between the town strategic goals and the departmental priorities. You will hear this link explained throughout the budget process in the coming months. Finally, throughout our presentations tonight, especially speaking back to the time when we were preparing for tonight, I was touched by each department's commitment to providing high quality public services, especially our rigorous application of the following values: fairness, efficiency, empowerment, equity, inclusion, belonging, and care in our day-to-day work. For me, these values represent a passion for community initiatives of larger human significance, not just how we do business. They illustrate how our teams, our staff, our boards, and other volunteers work more effectively together, making Hopkinton a great place to live, work, and play. They represent a culture of individual accountability and shared responsibility, tonight's meeting is a continuing step towards collaborating well. It is a step towards continuing our dialogue about how to nurture collaboration in the right way so we can achieve an excellent vision for Community Hopkinton. This vision is not possible when we are working in isolation. Shortly before tonight's meeting, staff provided you with a worksheet listing each department's visions and priorities for all of us to reference during the brief presentations tonight. As we did in past years, at the end of tonight's webinar, we'll be asking for your feedback. Be very generous. Tonight's meeting, as you all know, will be facilitated by John Wortman. John is a best-selling author of Mastering Communication at Work, and he is an executive coach and trainer to many cities and towns across New England. John has been working with us here in Hopkinton for the past 3 years, working with staff, the select board, and hosting this event. John will help us celebrate our progress in building Community Hopkinton. Thank you.
Each of you have a job tonight, and that is to listen to these presentations by your paid staff, as well as by your select board member, and develop questions. We will begin with the work of our select board. We will then turn to our town manager to hear his vision and goals, and then we'll give each each director 2 to 3 minutes to talk about their vision, their goals, and stories or descriptions of what success is going to look like in the future. We will then conclude that somewhere between 7 and 7:15, and we will give you a few minutes to take a break, and we'll come back and we'll ask questions and have that dialogue about where we're going as a town. In working with towns across New England, this is a unique activity. Now, it may have come out of the inability to meet during the time of COVID. It is still so precious because we are recording for perpetuity the powerful work that's being done by your teams. Again, we'll work until about 7 or 7:10, take a 5-minute break, and then you'll have your time for questions. Spend time really listening today for the things that tie the work of different leaders together and the work you want to know more about. With that, I'd like to invite Amy Ritterbusch to give us the vision and goals of our select board.
Hi, I don't remember being told that I was going to speak tonight. So you want me to just read the goals? Is that?
That's exactly what I'd like you to do.
Okay. Okay, so can we put them on the screen for people to read? I find it's a lot easier for people to visualize if they can see it.
We'd love to have you actually read them just because we want to experience people live, and your story is most important tonight.
Okay. All right. The Select Board FY23 goals are: number 1, mental wellness is a fundamental human right. Number 2, universal adherence to the budget message and timeline to have and complete a balanced budget 14 days before town meeting. And we are relying on all the boards and committees to help us get to this goal because we don't usually exactly make it. So all of you listening, please do your work, get it turned in on time. Goal number 3, address climate change. Goal number 4, increase diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging at all levels throughout town. Goal 5, address town water needs. Goal 6, provide inclusive, transparent communication to all citizens. And it has a / inclusive, transparent communication, so that might be a typo. Goal 7, maintain everyone's high quality of life during a time of increased growth and development. I think paying special attention to affordability. Goal 8, increase public participation in visioning and strategic planning for the town. Goal 9, develop and continue relationship with Eversource. Goal 10, anticipate and proactively address public concerns throughout the Main Street Corridor project and empower professional staff when raised for this and other public projects. 2 new goals this year: number 11, promote economic activities in town, and number 12, digitize town administration.
Anything you'd like to add to that in terms of your vision as a select board, Amy?
No.
Which brings us to Norman. So what happens in any town is you have the citizens doing the great committee work led by our select board to define what's most important. It's then handed over to our town manager to actually execute as our chief executive that throughout the town. He is the beginning of the big tent of all the inclusive work you're going to hear about today. Norman, tell us about your vision goals and give us a story or two.
I'll begin with the setting for the vision, and the setting is coined from different data that I run into in my day-to-day work. As you may know, I compile a lot of data, do a lot of analysis. However, in the last 6 months, there are 3 data points that I would like to share with the community. Number one, between 2012 and 2020, the median household income in Hopkinton rose by 35% to approximately $172,000 a year. The current average home price is $838,000, up 11% this year. Secondly, during the same period, 2012 to 2020, the number of persons living in poverty has increased by the same percentage, 35%, and has risen at a faster rate than the town's population, which has increased by 20%. Number 3, the number of households in Hopkinton receiving SNAP benefits has steadily increased during the same time. Back in 2012, a little over 1% of households in Hopkinton were receiving SNAP benefits. Our population back then was 15,000. Now, we're a little over 2% of our households receiving SNAP benefits. Thus, this data to me represents a very wide range of challenges and opportunities that are faced by community Hopkinton. These challenges, as I said, are varied. Thus, against that background, the town manager's vision is we believe in, elevate, and advocate for the community and all residents' desires and quality of life. How do we get there in the coming year? We exemplify care and engagement. We facilitate communication, and will promote transparency. With those goals in place, what would good look like? Our practices, our norms, and perspectives of care, engagement, communication, and transparency will lead town government into an excellent enterprise of caring services. Town Hall, in that context, is a consensus builder, a translator of community values, a facilitator of process, a convener of diverse and different stakeholders, a facilitator of conflict resolution, and most importantly, Town Hall is a source of community empowerment.
Thank you, Norman. Elaine, how are we living out our values and being a source of empowerment through our land use and permitting?
Here I go. I'll let you know. Tonight, I'm representing the Land Use Planning and Permitting Department. We can encompass all things land use related and serve 13 boards and committees that conduct planning and regulatory activities in addition to our professional work here in the office. The vision of the department is that Hopkinton is vibrant and inclusive and is a leader in sustainability. We believe in equity, we believe in community choice, and we respond to and protect our environment. We're ever mindful of our link to every citizen's quality of life. There are a lot of things one could do to achieve the vision, but I have 3 broad goals tonight. The first is to implement an online permitting system. The second is to increase equity and access to resources and opportunities. And the third is to work together toward community equity as we address climate change. More about the goals. The online permitting was a goal from last year, and it remains a goal now. We've purchased permitting systems in the past, but we're still looking for one that is user-friendly and meets our needs. The main goal here is to make things easier for the applicant and staff so that the process of applying for and obtaining permits is streamlined and accessible from offsite. The goal to achieve equity in the services we provide involves a critical examination of the services provided through the department and how well people can access them. I'd like to identify the changes that should be made in any of the department's processes and procedures, and then make those changes. Addressing climate change is a big but necessary goal. Many, if not all, of the impacts of climate change are linked to land and land use in some way. Whether it's torrential rain and stormwater runoff, energy, or building construction methods, it's something we all have a stake in. No matter the issue, there are choices to be made. There are ongoing citizen-led initiatives in Hopkinton right now, including a climate action plan and a net zero resolution that we'll be a part of. Our involvement includes research, policy advice, and implementation. These initiatives will require us to look beyond ourselves to the entire community because we need to make decisions together. In summary, we look forward to working together to achieve equity, preparedness, and efficiency, and achieving a balance of community interest in the issues we face. Thank you very much.
We thank our assistant town manager and notice the themes of equity and inclusion, notice the themes of climate, and keep seeing how the work we're doing through our professional staff ties back to those 12 goals of our select board. Which brings us to Sean in Health Services. And Sean, a special thank you to you. The last 2 years have been as aggressive in your world as they could possibly be, and you've kept us safe, and we're grateful.
Thank you. So the Hopkinton Health Department, our overall vision is just to create better health for all. I think we've done a lot to move towards that goal over the last 3 years, and I'd like to say that we've been recognized for all the work that we've done at both the state and the federal level. Our goals are linked to what Elaine just presented. And then I think you'll see that they are also tied to just about every other department in the municipality. What we are focused on in 2024 is developing and delivering a strategic plan to better communicating the services that the health department provides. I would argue that most don't understand the number or level of service that we provide to the community. And we're really focused on expanding our services without impact to your taxes, and as an overall requirement of all of the work that we do for the state and the federal government, all of the work that the health department does takes into consideration diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. So I would argue that our goals, all of the work that we're doing, really ties into exactly what the select board has requested of us. As far as how do we know we're doing good? We were just joking about this over the last week. When you don't know what we're doing our best. And that's also probably one of the greatest challenges to local health, is that we don't do an effective job at communicating all of the work that we do. Now moving into the narrative that I prepared for this presentation, I'm using the number 170. So annually, the Hopkinton Health Department is mandated by the Mass Department of Public Health and the Mass Department of Environmental Protection to provide permitting, inspection, management, and reporting for 170 separate regulatory tasks within the following 19 categories: sewage disposal, wells, food, water purity and quality, pools and beach safety and water quality, burials and funeral directors, cemeteries, community health monitoring, hazardous materials and waste, disease management, hoarding, nuisances, solid waste, housing and dwellings, camps, pesticides, tobacco, animal control, sewage releases, and the reporting and drafting of reasonable health. Actually, it should be recording and drafting of reasonable health regulations. Most of this work is invisible to the public and the municipal administration. I'm pleased to report that the results of a September 2022 Mass DPH survey found that we are meeting all of these minimum requirements. In addition to the 170, our team has the discretion to further develop our programming beyond the minimal requirement required by the Mass DPH and the Mass DEP. In Hopkinton, we have expanded our services during the pandemic. We grant funded our COVID-19 response, maintained one of the best vaccination rates in the Commonwealth. We've protected the operational integrity of our schools and municipal departments while improving our influenza vaccination rates by threefold.
And Sean, that's a great place to wrap up. What's the most important thing that you're proud of in the last year?
As you know, as we transition into the 2024 fiscal year, we are looking forward to implementing our community EMS programming and developing a community crisis response team that will involve all of the public safety, youth and family, senior services. So we're looking forward to building upon our successes and really making Hopkinton a healthier place to live.
We'd love to hear from our senior services. Amy, tell us all about what you're doing for the wise people of our community.
Great. Well, thank you. The vision for senior services is that we become a community and continue to be a community where seniors and individuals can thrive. Our goals in the upcoming year is to build our ability to identify and provide resources and services for a diverse community, to broaden our programming and to promote awareness and to help promote inclusiveness and belonging in Hopkinton, and to continue our work towards Hopkinton becoming an age and dementia-friendly community. I will say we did receive recognition as becoming a dementia-friendly community, and now we're working on the other part, and this is an ongoing process.
Amy, let me interrupt you for a second. What does it mean to be a dementia-friendly community?
Dementia-friendly community is a community where it's welcoming to all residents and support those living with dementia so that they can continue to feel like they're part of the community.
It's that living with part that we forget. Really, right. We are team efforts as families taking care of our folks who've gotten more vulnerable.
Great. And so good for us is a sense of belonging for all with support and services as they're needed. We love that every story is different. Good for senior services is creating an environment that promotes belonging within the community. Every day we see examples of seniors engaged in the community by attending and enjoying lunch, taking part in exercise classes, or sitting and chatting with friends at the senior center. For us, belonging also looks like a non-English speaking attendee who, through family help and technology, is participating in activities at the senior center. It is welcoming those with dementia and their caregiver to our memory cafe and other events. And it is assisting seniors and families to complete fuel assistance applications so they can continue to live comfortably and safely in their homes.
Brilliantly put together, Amy. Thank you. Dawn, what are our youth and family looking forward to in the 23-24 calendar?
Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody. Our vision is that we're here to help. And our goals, number one, is through the engagement of town departments and nonprofit organizations, create a unified community trauma response action plan so that when residents are engaged with, they're engaged with in a trauma-informed way. To formalize a structure for the youth and family services programming to include regular programming that people can rely on and a variety of unique offerings. And share the work of the department and its collaborators with stakeholders and the community through a monthly newsletter. Our story of what good looks like is the ripple effect, and it's best told through the voices of 4 residents. When I wanted to kill myself, you listened, helped me calm down and identify what would help me live. You connected me to resources and protected me and my family from something terrible. I don't know what I would have done if I had not found your office. I told others about you so that they can get help too. I received the flyer about drop-in hours and the training programs. So needed and helpful. Thank you. The deep support Youth and Family Services has given to the Hopkinton Freedom Team since our inception has been amazing. It's because of Youth and Family Services that we've been able to offer so much to our community. I love our collaborative efforts. I got close to being evicted because I needed my rent money to pay for my car repair. You helped me access emergency funds and even more resources to help me and my kids stay in my home. Bless you. The help you gave may have seemed small to you, but it was big to me. Good looks like those seemingly small tasks we do every day as part of our job that ripple onward to continue to touch lives for the better.
What's so powerful is that Sean and Amy and Dawn are giving your vulnerable members of your community a chance to really heal and a chance to really connect. And it's the connections that most impressed me with what the three of you were saying. You're bringing people together in times where, because of the hybrid world, because of illness, it's so much harder to do. And we're grateful for those efforts. And it wouldn't be enough if we didn't also have Jay telling us for Parks and Rec how we're going to recover from all the hard work we're doing to take care of the vulnerable. How are we playing together in Hopkinton?
Thanks, John. Our vision really doesn't change from year to year. It's pretty consistent. We want to provide healthy, engaging activities and facilities for every resident in town. And the stress this year is on every resident in town. So 10 years ago, cricket didn't exist in Hopkinton. In fact, few people probably even knew what cricket was. Now we have over 200 to 300 folks in town that participate in organized cricket. We want to construct a first-class cricket pitch for our cricket enthusiasts so that they feel as though they belong here and that the town is providing that for them. And success will be a year from now on a nice fall day when those folks are competing and enjoying themselves on a brand new cricket pitch over at Pine Field. That's what great would look like. Not good, but great. Again, on the theme of all residents, we're really hoping to collaborate this year with the senior center. We want to engage our most senior residents. And some of our senior residents obviously can't participate in active sports, but they can certainly, we can certainly engage them in other ways. And one of the things that we're working on and that we'd like to do and what good would look like would be our most senior residents competing in a puzzle bowl, a jigsaw puzzle bowl with maybe their grandchildren and their children and other residents in town, or maybe a day at Sandy Beach, just enjoying an afternoon. And then lastly, how do we ensure that every resident in town feels as though there's something for them? We want to have an outreach program, and we want to promote participation. We want to bring folks in and help us figure out, are we bringing you the right things? Do you feel like there's something for you? And good would be scheduled meetings, scheduled roundtables with parents, folks in the community, talking and making sure that they're enjoying the facilities. What can we do to make them better? What programs are we not offering that you really want? And get the feedback. And again, we are an organization that simply cannot function without collaboration with every other department in town. So collaboration is a necessity for us, not a luxury.
Notice the inclusion there of every member of our community at whatever stage of the life. And notice that we've been inclusive in sports too. Last year, pickleball, this year, cricket. And it's powerful to know that no matter what your passion is, we're trying to find ways to offer it. Which brings us to Dave. You've got to make sure that the facilities can handle all the residents of Hopkinton needs. Tell us about your vision.
Good evening, everyone. The Engineering Facilities Department, our overall vision is to provide clean, safe, comfortable public spaces and employee work areas and minimizing expenses. Our big three goals under that vision: first-class service. Why first-class service? Say properly provided equally across all departments will overall lead to happier employees and more efficient operations. Second goal is risk aversion. Risk aversion under the vision, when consistently applied, will result in predictive capital spending, which can lead to maximizing every dollar. Third goal under our vision is building civic pride. Again, following our vision, the goal is to provide clean and welcoming public buildings that people can feel good about, and that visitors will make them want to move to Hopkinton. Again, with the vision and these goals, this should all lead to all the department heads presenting here tonight, focusing all their energy and efforts on their departments and the efficiency of their departments, and not responsibilities of facilities. Facilities' goal is to keep their doors open to the public, and providing employee work areas particular to each individual employee needs and wants, to just make employees happier. What good looks like for for the Hopkinton Facilities Department? Net zero buildings. Again, buildings people take pride in. Departments focusing on excellent service and employee care. Risk-free spending on capital. Equal service to all departments. Continuous training and team building opportunities for staff.
Dave, people don't realize how important what you do every day is to making sure that people can only focus on residents, and we're grateful for you. And you wouldn't be able to get to work if it weren't for John. John, tell us about DPW and what you're doing for water and roads and all of the needs that keep our town moving smoothly.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. We had a mother's group who toured the DPW with their children, and I asked, who knows what the DPW does? And one of the children said, the DPW takes care of the town. So our vision is to take care of the town through a world-class, sustainable public works department. And our three big goals are sustainable water supply, service to all, and employee self-care. And for us, good looks like dependable public works services, knowing that clean water is going to flow from the tap, that your children will play on well-maintained fields, that the streets will be plowed so that you can get home to your family safely. In short, you can rest assured that your DPW is taking care of the town.
Now, you brought up something very interesting, JW, and that's that self-care matters for your employees. What do you mean by that?
We have to ensure that our employees are in the best shape that they can be, that they're in good health when they show up. We have a lot of great equipment here, but those trucks, they don't drive themselves. The lawnmowers don't mow the fields themselves. Our employees are our number one asset, and we need to make sure that they are taking care of themselves and that they show up to work in the best condition to be able to take care of the town.
Notice that extra level of care you're getting from Dave and John in terms of everybody being able to do what they love to do and what they're called to do. It can't happen without the two of you, and we're grateful. And then we have the reality that emergencies happen and trouble does show up, and someone is ready with her team to take care of you. That's Megan. Tell us about communications for our public safety team.
Thanks, John. So the Hopkinton Communications Department's vision is to provide and maintain high-class emergency services with courtesy, compassion, and efficiency to save lives. And our three goals are to create uniformity through new updated procedures as well as updated training for the communications staff, clearly develop a mid-level management position, and to begin an online presence for the communications department. We're a little behind in that aspect, but our goal is to get out there and be visible. So what does good look like for us? Good is answering your call, that personal care for every person who calls so that they feel heard and feel like their needs have been met. And a good story I have to further define that is many years ago, we received a call in the dispatch center from an elderly couple who was in a rental car, and they had locked the keys to the car in the trunk of the car. They were in the passenger compartment, but they couldn't get the keys in the trunk. And they called and they didn't know what to do and they were panicked. So the dispatcher assured them, we'll help you out, don't worry. So because it's a rental car, obviously they're unfamiliar with the car. So the dispatcher asked what kind of car it was. So while they got that answer, the dispatcher Googled where the trunk release button is in this car. So it was found where it should be. The dispatcher guided the caller to where the button should be. Do you see a little yellow button there? Yeah, push it. Pushed it, trunk pops open. They couldn't have been more happy. And that's the kind of service that we want to provide to everybody. We realize to all of us, it's probably the tiniest thing in the world, just opening a trunk. Great. But to these folks, it made their day, it probably made their year. And it was a great feeling for the department to have that, that touch with the community.
And notice Megan's theme of care that ties back to Norman's value and our value as a town. And hear the care that you're getting out of each of your leaders in the way that they're trying to bring you the ways in which real lives are being affected by these goals and by this vision. Which brings us to Chief Joe. Tell us about what's going on in our police department now and in the future.
Sure. Thank you, John, and good evening, everybody. The bottom line is we're here for everyone always. Everybody, always. We have 3 priority goals. Excuse me, community interaction and relationship building to sustain legitimacy. We know that the community wants to engage with us. We know that through those interactions and that engagement and getting to know us, it builds trust and it makes people more willing to come to us with their problems, therefore allowing us to better serve them. It's important that we always do policing and consistent and constitutional crime prevention and fair and impartial policing. It's absolutely essential, and that goes back to the trust that we're always trying to build with the community. And we need to look out for protecting the health and wellness of our personnel through awareness and professional collaboration. We have all been through some hard times over the last few years. I've spoken with this group before. Public safety personnel, the amount of stress, people leaving the job, and unfortunately suicide is very high. And we need to look out for our caregivers, the people that are out there in all of public safety, and take care of them. So we're going to work hard on that as well. And we believe that exceptional service lasts well beyond the call. We believe that when we interact with members of the community, we want to leave an indelible mark on them that transcends just the call. And I'd like to share a call with you that kind of shows the amazing work of your public safety team, your police and fire specifically. One day, dispatchers are sitting in dispatch, and they get a call of a man in full cardiac arrest in his car in a parking lot of a business. Immediately, the communicator begins giving life-saving instructions on how to perform CPR and walks the security staff through the process of beginning care in the first moments of the call. As officers respond, they arrive to find CPR being actively performed, and they begin working as first responders. They continue with CPR, and they use a defibrillator to actually bring the person back to life. Fire comes on scene moments later, and they continue to give life-saving care at the next level, transport the person to the hospital, and that person lived through that event. Now, for me, that is what good looks like. That is the epitome of all of us working together in minutes, in seconds, in microseconds, to actually save a person's life. And it just doesn't get any better than that.
And thank you for reminding us that behind all the complexity of the present ideological and political environment, there's one job of our public safety team, and that is to make sure that people live well and are saved in these moments of crisis. And we're so grateful to hear what you're able to do for us. Chief Phil, tell us another story of good.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. The vision for the FD is straightforward. We're looking to operate with an effective response force to serve the community needs with a diverse workforce. Our goals this year are multifaceted and rather large, but they're building on public safety and the needs of the community and what we're seeing a rise in. So my first 3 goals would be the next phase of Station 2 work, which would include addition to the north side of the building, improve living quarters and operational space, an effective response force to handle the calls in the Woodville section of town, and decrease response times from the headquarters station, as there is a large area in the Woodville section that needs to be covered, and also accommodate departmental growth. Our next goal is one additional staff member for the fire prevention to do SAFE, senior SAFE, CPR, first aid, community risk reduction, and inspectional overflow. As everyone knows, the community is continuing to grow. The demands are increasing both on police, fire, communications, DPW, all the way through the community. One really quick story that I'd like to pass on, unfortunately did not have a positive ending, but it had a positive beginning. With our community risk reduction, we're trying to do it now with members who are on duty, and it's very difficult. Long and short, we had a member become friendly with a resident who was afraid and not comfortable calling 911. About a month ago, this resident called this individual directly, member, and said they didn't feel well. Through knowing this individual, talked her into going to the hospital, and she had a dissectic aortic aneurysm, which is life-threatening. Unfortunately, the resident did pass, but I think it would have been a lot sooner if she hadn't made that phone call and had the trust in our members. So having trust is very important. Our third goal this year is we're looking for additional staffing, one per group, to raise our minimum staffing to improve our effective response force for calls and to ensure staffing from multiple calls in a row. We're seeing more and more simultaneous calls. What's good for the fire department? Effective response force for increased service requests. Our story is pretty simple. We've seen an increase of 15% of calls over the past 5 years as Hopkins continues to prosper into one of the most desired places to live and raise a family. This increase equates to simultaneous calls, often leaving only one or in many cases no responders to handle the next emergency. Additional staffing and continued operation of Station 2 are needed to keep up the growth of the community and for us to continue providing excellence and service to all residents and visitors to the town of Hopkinton.
Here are the responses from your public safety team. Imagine if there wasn't someone to return your call. That's why we're asking for the extra budgets that are coming in the future. And the need is great because we keep growing as a community. With more people comes more needs. It's a simple formula, but it's also a reality we have to take care of. Which brings us to our schools. Tell us, Jeff, about the vision and the goals for the schools in the next calendar year.
Absolutely, John. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for allowing me to jump in and join this wonderful group tonight as I begin my tenure as your Assistant Superintendent of Schools. The vision for the schools, the Hopkinton Public Schools, is a simple one. We want to make sure that every student reaches their fullest potential, and that they do that through a curriculum and a program that is innovative, engaging, and meets every student's needs. Our tagline this year, that's running through just about all of the work we do, is that all means all. We say everyone often, we say all often, but this year we're doubling down and saying that all truly does mean all. And in the Hopkinton Public Schools, all means more than 4,000 students being educated and supported by nearly 600 educators and support staff across pre-K to grade 12. And of course, in addition to that, our 18 to 22 program. We have three areas of focus that we have as part of our strategic plan this year. The first one being enrollment growth. It's no secret that the Hopkinton Public Schools, along with the town writ large, is growing at an exponential pace. We are proud that oftentimes families will cite our public school system as the reason for coming to Hopkinton. And we try not to be that good. But unfortunately, we continue to be so, and it continues to be a draw for the town. So meeting that enrollment growth means not only supporting needs, but creating the physical space that will allow students to learn and our staff members to work appropriately to support students. We want to meet every student's needs, and what we know is that every student's needs are different. And we know as well, as we continue to learn more and more about our students and what best educational practices are, the portfolio of what we provide students is continuing to become diverse. It's continuing to become ever increasingly complex and nuanced in the work, which of course means more resources, more funding, more space, and more time. Easier said than done, I know. And finally, we're working to build a community of respect and collaboration in which all of that work can take place. We know that as a district, most of our students are meeting or exceeding expectations, whether it be measured through a standardized test such as the MCAS or other assessments that we utilize. But again, going back to the statement I shared with you early at the top there, all means all, which means that until everyone is exceeding or meeting those standards, we have a lot of work to do, and we're going to continue to do it. One of the things that you've asked is a little quick narrative on what makes the work so good. We had a parent share with us recently that their student had shared some feedback about school. The student said, "I don't know how they do it, Mom, but they keep making learning so fun." And when we hear things like that, we know we're doing a good job, because if those students are engaged, they're going to learn. If they're learning, they're going to be able to achieve at high levels.
What we love about what you brought to us, Jeff, is that you're actually paying attention to the future of schools for so many. Can you give us a quick hint of one of the innovations that you're working on?
Absolutely. So there are many of them. Some of them are a little bit more shiny than others. Right now, we're doing a lot of behind the scenes work with some of our curricular approaches. This is sometimes thinking about what our instructional programs look like behind the scenes. So I'm thinking of one effort that we're doing at the secondary level, where we're working on something called disciplinary literacy. And what this means is that we are teaching our students in a very specific way to be able to read, decode, write, and apply text and information specific to the domain that they're studying, be it science, social studies, mathematics, or the like. Not necessarily something that is shiny or will make the front page of the local paper, but something that's deeply enhancing student learning and outcomes.
How to read better, no better innovation in the world. Which brings us to Connor. People are about to read some ballots. It's a busy time for you. Tell us about the clerk's office.
Oh, it is in fact a busy time, but fortunately I am able to count all these magnificent folks on this call as either colleagues, neighbors, or both. So in the clerk's office, a huge portion of this and kind of what we're aiming to achieve here is all around that integrity and making people feel like they belong in the community. And that is through service and building trust and transparency for this community. The goals that we're looking at, before I even get into those, I want to touch base really briefly on one that we did manage to get achieved from the last time that we were sitting here together, which is we had issues around getting staff and trying to get more staffing in the office. And as of the meeting with the select board just the other night, we were able to appoint a joint member, a joint admin between the HR department and our department. And so that right there is a huge step towards making sure that we can keep providing the level of service that our residents expect. As we've seen over the past few years, elections keep getting more and more complicated with all sorts of issues surrounding them and people questioning whether or not it's working for them. It's our job to make sure that the public trust is maintained in that process that makes the entire system continue to function properly and make it so that all of you can continue to have that support from these elections that make sure that the whole system works from the top down. And it's our job to ensure that people see that through the transparency in the process and ensuring that we provide more and more methods in how people can actually see everything that we do in the process, whether it be from the actual testing of equipment to how we count ballots, but even not from the election side, from the town clerk side of things. We have, we're colloquially called occasionally the face of town hall. And I like to say the face is always smiling when people come in. And, we are usually the first point of contact for most of the residents who come to town hall. And a lot of times, a lot of the other folks in this call end up getting referred to by me. And we get people in various stages of their lives, and sometimes in their happiest moments, they're getting married, they're having their first child. And we get people when they're dealing with loss. We get people when they're dealing with crisis and they don't know where to turn. And we work to keep that network going and be informed on how we can give people the services they need and connect them with the services in town hall, but also beyond. And so that's really what we aim to do from our goals. And around those goals, we're looking at increasing utilization of technology. This is something we had last year, but it's something we continue to build on. We've managed to really solidify it with dog licensing. Now it's time to push forward with everything else. create more written policies and procedures for our office functions as we look at issues around election integrity and threats to election officials over the years. We look at ways that we can have emergency response and continuity of operations in play. And we work very closely with the state on making these plans and have been working on them for quite a while, and now just look at finalizing them and having them ready to go. And then finally, one that also continues to carry over is increasing civic engagement in the community. As we see, town meeting isn't always that well attended, but it is always our job to make sure that people know what's going on so that they can feel informed and they can feel comfortable coming and being a part of that process.
Well done, Connor. And again, best to you as you do the important work of our democracy. Without you, we don't get to move forward. Which brings us to the man who controls the purse strings and makes sure your dollars are spent intentionally and with the highest level of fiduciary responsibility. Tim, tell us about the best news in finance.
Thanks, John. Finance really has two different business lines. One is our business processes. So we manage processes that bring in all the revenue to the town, including property tax. We manage cash and investments. We manage spending, including payroll. And the other side of our operation is that we provide clear and useful information that helps people make decisions about the town. We're really a lean operation. We spend under 1% of the funding that we handle. And a very good finance operation means that our processes are working and improving all the time, that we're resilient, and we can survive external shocks or personnel changes. It also means that people trust our analysis, and that when it's time to make decisions, they can rely on us to provide the right information. So our three big goals, the first two are really around that process side. The first one is continuous improvement in our business processes. And that gets us to be more accurate and cheaper and faster and allows us to thrive during disruptive times. The second one is to leverage technology to improve our processes. And really what that can do is free up our staff from doing some of the things they're doing now that we can automate and shift them to higher value, higher skill work. The third goal goes more to decision support and building trust in the community. It's about our web-based financial dashboard and kind of shifting from an era where we put out quarterly or annual reports to where we continuously put out information that people might need or might want to use. And that's especially important when we're talking about these issues for equity and diversity. There's typically a cost factor. People want to understand the cost, and our experience has really been when people understand the cost clearly, that it's a very generous community that wants to do the right thing. If we can take that uncertainty out. Our goals are aligned with the town's strategic objectives, going up and going down. They flow into my own performance plan and the plans of all my team members. So a really great outcome for us is that on a really bad day, our operations are still stable and sound, and we're serving the community. And in a really difficult time, people can rely on our information and trust us. And just a couple examples, we're in this very difficult situation with our largest taxpayer, who is appealing a substantial portion of their tax bills. And the consequences of that are very large. And there are many decisions that the town has to make related to that situation. And we really want the town leadership to trust us and believe that we are doing what we need to do to provide the right path forward in that situation. Likewise, we're facing a capital bow wave for the schools and other departments in the hundreds of millions of dollars in the coming years. And accurate information about the cost of borrowing and the tax impact is important to people as they make trade-off decisions in that situation. So we really value that role. We think it's important if the community is going to be the best community it can be and the community it wants to be, for people to have accurate information about what the consequences are of these decisions. And we're very fortunate to be providing that service to the town.
And what you just heard about finance in its work of dashboarding and providing data, what you heard in terms of the clerk's office, in terms of trying to use technology beyond just is it permits, Connor? What is it?
Dog licenses.
Dog licenses. I'm going to pivot and go to Josh next because Josh, we can't do all this work without you. Tell us about IT.
Thanks, John. The IT department's single sentence vision statement is that Hopkinton is the most technologically advanced and transparent town in the world. Our goals are a more robust transparency center, maximizing the investment in our electronic document management system, implementing a standardized online permitting system, and continued focus on cybersecurity, which includes ongoing awareness training for every employee. IT keeps everybody working. When Town Hall suffered from major water damage, we had all departments back online in 4 different buildings within only 16 hours, and all phone numbers remain the same, along with a dedicated hotline for resident questions. During a global pandemic, we leveraged our existing investments in technology so that we could be adaptable and flexible and continue to meet the needs of the community. Good looks like resilient and dependable IT infrastructure and tools that support and enable Hopkinton residents, volunteers, and employees with platforms, access, and information they need. An ideal state is the ability for residents to perform all transactions with Hopkinton remotely if they choose to, and for an abundant amount of data and information published for self-service.
Notice that hybrid world possibility that Josh is working so hard on, to be able to do things in whatever time frame from whatever place you need to. Notice what's so important about what Tim said, constant data so you can keep track, not just on a quarterly basis, but on a daily or weekly basis, how things are going in the town. And again, kudos to Josh and to Dave, because what they do to keep our employees working, make sure that Maria has the ability to take the best people and bring them to Hopkinton. Tell us, as our last speaker tonight, before we take a break and go to questions, Maria, tell us about talent, HR function, DEI in Hopkinton.
Thank you, John, and good evening to everyone. The HR vision is to enhance the workplace to more closely monitor the community. You've heard a lot about diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging, and that is critical for HR and all of the customers, where we have internal facing customers, and for all of our customers so that they can look like the community as it is. It's also to identify areas of focus that are in line with the mission. There is uniformity with the select board goals, town manager goals, and to assist the town and its employees in providing the most effective services while enriching the work experience. HR values are trust, engaging, partnering, aspiration, ethics, commitment, and work-life balance. The 3 goals for HR are diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, heading toward immersion. We've actually been working on DEIB since 2016 when we began training. And so we are trying to head toward immersion, which will also fulfill the vision of having the workforce mirror the community. The second goal is employee advancement and opportunity. And through succession planning and our competitive merit promotion opportunity, in that way we can advance employees. And finally, employee engagement and retention. And here's what good looks like. All people matter. We want everyone to belong. Thus, we want to be an inclusive and diverse workforce and environment. We want everyone to grow. Thus, We have plans for employee advancement and opportunity through the competitive merit promotion and succession planning. And we want to measure the town's employees' work and experiences. That's what good looks like for us.
Maria was our second to last speaker. The library will bring us to the end and tell us about all the places where you can learn in this beautiful town.
Thank you, John. The Hopkinton Library fosters a sense of community and belonging, providing equal access to materials, programs, and discussions that foster intellectual and individual growth. And that vision is best illustrated with the story of an older gentleman that we met one Saturday last month. Another staff member and I were on the circulation desk, and this gentleman came in having walked from across town where he lives now with his daughter. He spoke Spanish and very, very limited English and walked to the library because he wanted resources to help him learn the language. We were able to find him a kit of books and CDs that would help him learn English. But he didn't have a library card, nor did he have any identification on him. We were able to get his daughter's name and phone number out of him. We called to the daughter and explained the situation to her. She didn't have a library card either, but she drove over to the library, and we were able to give them both library cards and also give this gentleman information on our English language learners conversation circles. This patron embodies the 3 goals that we have for the coming year. And also in our small discussion groups and survey that we created prior to completing our 2022 to 2027 strategic plan. And that is that you, our community, asked for enhanced access to library resources, including extended hours, expanded collections in multiple formats and languages, and more events for all ages. What would good look like? We will begin opening some Sunday hours during the school year. We will take the information that we've gathered from our recent diversity audit of our collection to diversify our offerings in materials. And we will increase programming among all ages and for all groups by 25%, as well as participation in programming by 25%. Thank you.
It's been a privilege to hear from all of our leaders who are doing the work as pushed by our select board and by each of you as committee members. Let's take 5 minutes and come back at 7:07. It is never appropriate to stay in a Zoom meeting more than an hour, and go dark on your screen, but do not leave the Zoom meeting. We will be back at 5 minutes and we'll kick off with questions. This is your 1 minute morning, ladies and gentlemen. We'll begin in 1 minute. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you've refreshed your coffee and tea for this, the questioning time of our session tonight. Again, we've just heard presentations from our leaders and staff, and we're so excited now to give you a chance to ask them the things you want to know about their visions, their goals, what good looks like to them as we prepare for our budget process for this year. Let's start with one of our select board members. Muriel, we'd love to hear from you.
Hi, thank you so much. And thanks everybody for being here and for the amazing presentations. I again celebrate this forum. It's a really wonderful way to get all of us together in the same virtual room and understand what the priorities are. My question is for Tim O'Leary, the finance director. I have great concern, both as a taxpayer but also as a select board member, about the financial implications of the borrowings we have potentially or probably planned in front of us. And how do we first collectively get our arms around that in a financially sustainable way, approach it in a way that makes sense, also communicate it clearly with, including all of the financial pressures over the next period of time, and get that critical buy-in from the taxpayers, and or start to think, this big question, and or start to think more creatively, right? Maybe we cannot borrow that kind of huge amount of money and be sustainable. What can we do in the next 5 or 10 years to mitigate for the growth and the needs?
I hear two questions there. And one is, how do we deal with borrowing, Tim? And then secondly, how do we communicate about it so we have an educated public?
So thank you. I don't have anything to look at, but it's such a good question. I had to put my glasses on for it to think about this. So this is, you have just defined my, for our whole team, the world of work for the next year to try to synthesize this information. To kind of put this in scale, we've had a maximum, I think, about $110 million in debt in the town. And we have items that are cropping up on the horizon that, with the interest, sum to maybe $450 million, like 4 times the debt we've ever had. So think about that in the context of your own family. Then there's a couple things we have to look at. First is, what can we do? What are the legal limits? So there are statutory limits on borrowing, and there are certain provisions for challenging those limits. So we'll analyze that carefully. We'll lay that out. And then, of course, there's the question that Mr. Khumalo has been raising about equity and the people in our community who are struggling. Even if we could borrow $500 million, would that be something we would do to the people in our community who are struggling? Would we drag them along on that path? So I think, looking at the timing of these things, looking at how we can do things, roll things on as things roll off. And then I think there's going to be some difficult prioritization that's going to have to occur. And on the staff side, our job is going to be to give the select board in the town meeting the information they need in a way that's digestible, that will allow people to make those value judgments, to compare everybody's desire to have outstanding services and the very best of everything with the ability to pay for the most vulnerable members of the community. And of course, that's not a judgment for the staff, that's a judgment for the community. The staff's job is to frame those decisions in a way where people can bring their values to bear and make the best decision for the community. So there's going to be a sensitivity analysis, there'll be time sequencing reviews, but this is going to be a new and special era of challenge for us to try to keep ourselves as good as we are going through this growth spurt. Did that answer both parts of your question, or did I just hit the first part?
No, I think it actually more than answered both parts of my question. And I actually really appreciate that. And I think that just speaking for myself, but probably many people are similar to me. These are such big numbers, such big challenges, such big concepts. I really need to see sort of, I term it as like the picture on the puzzle box. Like what is the representation of the bit, all of it, right? And then how do we start to make some of those important incremental value decisions, certainly, but planning and maybe build in some of the creativity that I'm not quite sure what that means, but we're going to have to think about some things differently because what is the limit that we can borrow, and do we want to borrow to the limit? All those things, right? So how do we manage meeting the needs of the town and staying somewhere reasonably within the possible?
Yes, ma'am. The visualization part is a challenge, and I think we're up to that challenge, to putting together, once we have all the requests, putting together visualizations that will help people understand the scope of the challenge. I think the second part is the harder part, where people have to make judgments. And then the system doesn't exactly support a comprehensive approach, because all we're going to decide next May is what is on the warrant next May. And we're going to have to keep in our minds a 5-year horizon of what's out there. And the system doesn't really do that. So it's really going to take a lot of leadership by the elected leaders of the town and the people who serves on boards and committees to help keep that focus. Because, you know, it's easy to make the decision right in front of you, but you have to make it in the context of what you might be foregoing 2 years down the line. So it's a big challenge. I think we're up to it.
Thank you, Muriel and Tim. If you want to ask a question, you can press the raise your hand button at the bottom of your screen, or you can just raise your hand physically, and I will go back and forth between the screens. Who is our next question on this powerful evening?
Hey, John, it's Josh. If I may also, for any resident that may be joined and not a panelist, the Q&A option is available for folks to ask questions there.
We've got two options for you tonight: raising your hand if you are a panelist, one of our members of our committees, and the Q&A feature will allow us to see your questions. We'd love to hear from you at home. Dorothy, you've got the floor. You're on mute right now, and if you take it off mute, we'd love to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. I have a couple of comments and very positive information. I deal with a lot of people coming into town, internationally and worldwide, actually, runners that come into town to run the Boston Marathon every year. And I constantly get positive feedback of how they interact, whether it's with town hall, police station, fire station, and some of the individuals in town. But most of the examples, like for next week, I'm meeting with somebody that is running the, half marathon, and he's taking the time. He wants to come walk around Hopkinton. I mean, and he's from Australia, and he's been coming to Hopkinton for about 12 years. And it's pretty special to think that all these people think very highly of our town, because we have a warm and welcoming, appearance to everybody. And it's a special environment. And with everything, some of the negativity that we hear and everything, I thought you all should hear the good things that, are out there and more positive. And I'm impressed with everybody's goals tonight. I think they're excellent. And, but I just wanted to share, some of the things that, people say when they come into town. Some of these runners are here from Thursday to Tuesday, whether they stay with somebody in town or they're being bussed in or whatever. But they run into an officer by, they're directing traffic and they're crossing over to the common to see the sights and everything on the common of that weekend. Most runners come out here from Boston, and they're just amazed that they can stop at the starting line and get their picture taken on the starting line. You have no idea what that means to an individual runner that is their bucket list to run the Boston Marathon. And because of what this town does that weekend and every day, 365, right? The impression that they're left with is this warm and welcoming environment. And I just, that's why I keep involved with the marathon committee and the BAA that running, coordinating the Boston Marathon start here. It's just a positive, there's a great common spirit about this town. And you guys should all be proud of what you bring to the table. Each one play a part in representing the town of Hopkinton. Just wanted to share that.
Dorothy, we appreciate it. It's about to get more interesting because as cricket players around the world find our pitch, they're going to be showing up, and you're going to have more and more visitors who are going to want to run the marathon and then do the cricket duathlon as well. Stacy, you've got the floor.
Hi, everyone. I was really impressed with the whole kind of jumping off point, the what does good look like? I thought that was a really great starting point, and kind of it was a good, Dorothy had a good lead in for me. I'm chair of the Historic District Commission. I'm an architectural historian, but professionally, but I also come at it as, the greenest building built is the greenest buildings are the ones that are already built. So I really see it as preservation as an intersection with, as a strong intersection with sustainability. And one thing, and Dave Del Torio will know this, is that with all the construction that's been going on downtown, kind of just when you think people maybe don't care about stuff, I get lots of email about concerns about the common, and it's, not only is it the marathon, but it is such a visual, it's a touch point, it's a touchstone for people that what the common looks like, and the houses and center school, it's all, people are very, very protective of it. So in case you think nobody's paying attention, they absolutely are. They have a lot of comments. So I've really, been kind of following, we've been part of the process so far with what's going to happen with center school. But I thought it was really interesting because I think there's a lot of possibility there to kind of intersect, adapt the building that's still, that is going to stay, and then work off of that as a recreation center or add housing onto the back, or, there's a lot of really interesting intersecting points here. Jay was talking about mental health and having ways to help people decompress. I also used to be the town coordinator for Girl Scouts. I know they need places to meet. So it was very interesting to me to hear all the different ways that town government is trying to, what makes things look good, intersect so much with what, happens in my little corner around the common, and what I hear from people. Does town government have any sort of bigger policy about how buildings are reused? I know you guys have done a great job with town hall, and you get it restored, and then you get a water main break, and then so you guys have really over and over have put some energy into reusing town hall. Is there a larger policy in place, or I don't know.
Dave, do you have a thought there? And then I'll turn it over to Norman. Any policies in place for reusing buildings going forward?
Thanks, John. I'm not aware of any formal policies that are in place yet. Within general practice of what municipalities, do when buildings become vacated. There's kind of a standard process of how you approach that, but there's no formal town of Hopkinton policy I'm aware of.
Norman, any thoughts on reuse?
Dave is correct. I don't believe there's a specific policy. What we rely on are the existing regulations. Unfortunately, Nancy, you are responsible for administering the historic district regulations. However, what I've seen in the past years also is the select board directing the permanent building committee on a case-by-case basis to look at issues that emerge. For example, right now they are looking at center school. However, the answer is we do not have a policy. John, if I may, there was a question asked earlier on by Muriel regarding how we communicate the big capital expenditures that are coming. Two ideas come to mind, Muriel. One, through the efforts of George Grossetti, he's really encouraged us to find ways of communicating complex issues at the 8th grade level. So as we move forward, you will see more effort taken by staff to communicate clearly and in very simple ways. Secondly, I'm also encouraging town boards, town staff, town departments to perhaps reverse some of the communication flows. Usually we expect people to come to town hall. I'm now encouraging all of us to think about how we take town hall to the people. So instead of inviting people and relying on our traditional methods, for example, we're encouraging the library to really go out to the community. Similarly, with the budget, I will be encouraging the town finance team to take all our budget messages out to the community. So two things. One, let's expand our communication tools by taking whatever information we have, whatever big projects we're working on, to the community, rather than waiting for them to come to town hall or relying on our traditional methods. And then secondly, let's find simpler ways of telling our story.
One simple way, Norman, could be that with the visual created by Tim and his team, Josh creates a digital puzzle to reach out to folks who can't get out of the house. And then Jay creates a real puzzle off with our senior community and our kiddos to bring youth and family and seniors together. I sense a media propaganda opportunity right there. Nancy, you've got the floor. What's your question tonight?
Hi, I'm a first-time attendee, and this has been very informative. Thank you so much for inviting me. My question is for Jay from Parks and Recs. We just mentioned the puzzle. The puzzle, would you say it was the Puzzle Works?
Puzzle Palooza.
Puzzle Palooza. Okay, I heard that mentioned the first time today, but I really don't know what it is. So I was wondering if you could explain it to me. And is it something that at my next housing board meeting next week, is it something I could tell the tenants here about, that they could get involved in the seniors, or is it specifically for seniors, or can you explain it to me?
Yeah, so the plan is, and our staff met with the senior center staff last week to talk about the logistics and what it's going to look like and how it's going to be. And our vision is that we have several teams, maybe 3 or 4 folks on a team that compete to see who can finish a jigsaw puzzle first. And what our hope is that maybe a senior person in town might have a grandchild or a neighbor or a friend who would like to participate with them, so that we can make it intergenerational. And we were talking about possibly doing this in February, maybe during February school break, and maybe on a Saturday afternoon in February. We're still hashing out the details, but we are, both ourselves and the senior center are committed to this event. It's going to happen. We hope it's a big success so that we can maybe do it several times a year. But yeah, I hope that you would communicate that to folks who are maybe, looking to have some fun on a Saturday afternoon in the winter. And maybe, like I said, if they can bring a nephew or a grandchild or a neighbor and just have some fun.
Does it take place in a certain, where is it?
It's going to be at the senior center. It's going to be at the Hopkinton Senior Center. Yeah.
Because I know that the senior center, they always have the puzzles out and people are always, enjoying doing them as
So
well.
this
As here at housing, we always have the people working on jigsaw puzzles. So it might be something that all the seniors, will be great. Like, do you know how many teams, any amount of teams?
We were thinking maybe 10 or 12 teams of 3 or 4 people, all, but it has to be the same puzzle for each team. Otherwise it's not fair. So a 500 piece puzzle, 2 or 3 hours, free snacks,
I think
this is live. It's a great idea, Nancy.
Yes, I'm very idea for the seniors here and on Davis Road, as well as the seniors. Well, some of the seniors here from Davis Road also go up to the senior center. So, it's a win-win situation and fun for everybody. So that will be great. I'll announce that at our next board meeting next week to the seniors here.
Live community building happening in front of us, and you now have your deadline for your visual, Tim. Jeff, you're up.
Hey, folks. First, I just want to say thank you for the updates and, for your hard work and just for providing this forum for us. As the chair of the Sustainable Green Committee, I'm thrilled to hear about how so many departments are thinking about sustainability and being green in general. Elaine brought up how our committee is working on a climate action plan and, towards a net zero resolution. And Norman has kindly lined up a consultant to work with us, I think in the wintertime from MAPC to help finish up that climate action plan. But long term, we have more work than just generating the plan. We have actually implementing and getting to net zero over the coming decades. That requires a lot of coordination and working with state grants and communicating across various departments. It's honestly more than a volunteer committee can handle. So I was wondering, what can we do towards full-time staff members?
I'll turn that over to Elaine. I'll turn to Norman in a second. Elaine, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I think it will be important to have staff resources to implement all that will need to be done. So I agree.
Norman?
To that end, Jeff, good question. We have reconfigured the special projects officer position in the town manager's office to address specifically 3 priorities: economic development, climate change, and equity. So we will soon be advertising for that position, and we will have somebody working alongside your committee on the climate action plan, together with the town staff that are already working with you.
Fantastic news. Thank you.
Ed, you've got the floor.
Yes, I have a question based on what Muriel, Norman, and Tim were talking about. And specifically, Norman mentioned, I think it was, you used the term average salary of $172,000 for houses in this town. I'm curious, is that the mean, the median, or the mode, and what might be the range? Because we're talking a lot of serious money here, and we have a significant spread of residents in terms of their ability to financially meet these obligations. So I'll shut up and just hear what you got to say. Thank you.
Any more details, Norman, there on the facts of our incomes and housing prices?
The data we're looking at referenced the average household income.
Ed, any more?
Well, that doesn't really address.
Yeah, I think I would just add that, I think, Norman, you also had some information about growth in the number of people eligible for SNAP and other programs. So we know that the average is going up, but we also know that the gap between the top and the bottom is widening. Isn't that right?
Yeah, and that is my concern, and that's why I was curious whether it was a mean, median, or mode as far as the average, because that would also, I think, help me to get my head around this a little bit.
It's a good question, Ed. We'll collect that data for you, and we'll take that as a takeaway from tonight's meeting to provide a one-pager on the actual financials of our households. So collected. You've got the floor, Susan. Susan just pressed the wrong button and left the meeting. She will be back in a second, I'm sure. Richard, you take the floor for now. Oh, there you go.
Yeah, I just fumbled on the mute button. So what I was saying to myself was I how much I appreciate all of the presentations tonight and the work that went into them. And I'm really struck by that theme that we kept hearing about inclusion and belonging and affordability. And that goes a little bit to the statistics that Norman shared and the comment that the question that Muriel had. And all of those issues are close to my heart as the chair of the Senior and Disabled Tax Relief Committee. I have what's probably more of an ask than a question. It's a question you can go away and ask yourself. No need to answer it now. But we have always gotten a tremendous amount of support from the Senior Center in terms of publicizing that the fund is available, helping seniors actually fill out the applications and get them into us. And although, you know, with all of the statistics about increasing SNAP benefits and the spread of, you know, low and high income, we're seeing that the applications for tax relief have tapered off over the last 2 years. And to me, that's very alarming in the face of how the town is changing and the financial challenges that so many people have. So my ask, since all of you are working on reaching out, incorporating the community, that sense of belonging and inclusion, if you could think a little bit about how you can, you know, it's a bucket of assistance in an ocean of need, but reaching out to that community and letting them know about the resource that's available to them in tax relief. And also, there's so many other resources. And my experience in another life is that often people don't reach out because they don't know. They don't know what's there for them. So specifically in my case for tax relief, but maybe as a theme in general, for all of us to work together to, you know, reach out and make certain that people know. And what can you do in your committee work, in your daily work in town hall to help build that sense of inclusivity and build in affordability in just that small way. So
we appreciate
commercial
it,
message over. Thank you.
No, we appreciate it. And we look forward to you sponsoring Puzzle Palooza and getting that message across in an unexpected way. You're next, Richard. Tell us what you need.
John, this is close to your heart. I'm asking a question of Jay. Jay, when are we breaking ground on pickleball? Great question, Richard. So I'll tell you where we're at right now. We have a completed topographical survey of the property. We have, I just received 2 days ago, a design and plan from Andrew Leonard, our designer who you met. Andrew is going to present that at our next commission meeting. We then plan after that to have a forum for pickleball enthusiasts such as yourself who have been with us since the beginning of this process to review the design, to make sure it's exactly what we want as a town. And then after that, if all goes well, we plan to move forward with construction bids. Thank you, Jay. Sure.
Great update, sir. Other questions? Norman, as we make a little more room for questions, we have one from Amy.
Hi, I just mainly had some comments. Let's see. Just a couple things I wanted to mention. I know everybody's working on the commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, and everyone's given examples, but some things sometimes ring a little flat to me. Like I'm just looking at tonight, and the lack of scheduling this meeting in advance, further in advance, I think prevented some people from attending. And it ended up being in conflict with the Elmwood School Forum on the same night. And it just seems like that could have been avoided had we scheduled it further in advance and sent out a save the date, you know, a month in advance. Or anyways, I hope that we can consider that for the future, getting the word out further in advance so that everybody has a chance to come. Because in the survey about town meeting, everybody said that the Elmwood solution was really important to them. And so people may have been torn about which thing to go to tonight, even though I know they're both recorded and they could be watched later. And the other thing, let's see, I mentioned this to Ben already, but there's no closed captions available for tonight, and I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one on the call with a hearing loss. So that would have been helpful. And then let's see. And it would have really been helpful to me to have the goals on the screen. And I know you didn't want to do that, but I'm a really visual person. I have a hearing difficulty, and having them on the screen is hard. So, and then also the slides, I really appreciate getting the slides in advance, but they were not in the same order that people spoke tonight. So it was a little hard to scroll through and find them all in time what people were speaking. So just maybe if they could be in the same order that people speak, that would be great.
Great heads up. And again, giving these sorts of feedback in public is exactly the way we want to do this, because we have to have a continuing public conversation about being more not only inclusive, but accessible in the hybrid world. The reason that I encourage us not to have the slides is not, of course, Amy, to deny you that clarity, but rather to have us focus on the speaker. And you've just made a very good point. We'll work next year with Josh to be able to do that in an inclusive way, so it doesn't take away from the speaker and it also makes it visible for everybody. Again, thanks for those very important public comments. Muriel, I'm going to go to Michael first because we haven't heard from him, and then I'll turn to you.
Hi, I'm Mike Manning from the Appropriation Committee, and I do appreciate hearing everybody's comments and what their goals are for the upcoming budget season. I would just like to reiterate or agree with what Muriel Kramer talked about at the beginning regarding, the planning and the cost conscious, especially of the capital articles coming. And I did listen to what Tim was saying about, how the long-term capital requests are coming in, and we only have what's in front of us for this upcoming budget season. But I think it's really important, especially when I'm hearing about all these different, they could be good ideas or how we can really grow our community. But it's equally important to really have the 5, even 10-year plan, because as Tim was saying, we could be talking hundreds of millions of dollars of requests, and it may not be this year, it may not be next year, but they want to have it in 2 years. And I think we really need to know what's coming, and especially prior to this town meeting, that we have an idea of what we have to discuss, because interest rates are higher. It has a bigger impact on our taxes. So that's really a comment, but I agree with what everyone was saying regarding the budget, and hopefully we'll have some good data in front of us as we can make good decisions towards town meeting.
Mike, we hear that request for the 5 to 10 year roadmap with the high level of capital expense coming. Very clear request. It'll go on the list of things that will follow up from this meeting. Mariel, you're up.
Thank you.
Yeah, truly, really quickly, I wanted to elevate Amy's points because we don't know what format helps people. It would have helped me a lot. I had the slides pulled up and it was very hard for me to follow. And you'll notice I came in and out of the video because it helps me to not necessarily be focusing on faces when I'm trying to focus on the detail of what people are saying. It's just a different way of experiencing the format. So I appreciate your openness to the ideas, and particularly the closed captioning and the slides up on the screen. And just following up, a couple of charts from the finance folks to give the picture would also be really helpful. So that's me really quickly to close out. Thank you so much.
The request for visuals and the way in which we present this forum in a way that is predictable ahead of time, well heard, and it's on the list for next year. Susan, go.
Hi. Number one, obviously I'm Board of Library Trustees. I want to make a point that the Hopkinton Public Library got LEED certification. So we're going for a green situation. But my question, I guess, is it's finance and school, but it's aimed at the schools. We have had major issues estimating our growth in students, in student population. I know part of that is the state does an estimate, but we're outgrowing schools as we're building them. And we're bursting at the seams. And as it's been stated that one of the major draws for people to come to Hopkinton is our school system. Obviously, building new schools or expanding on schools is affecting our taxes, our finances, our borrowing, all of those things. And my question, I guess, to the public schools is there a more accurate way to estimate our student enrollment? I know it's impossible to be exact.
Jeff, tell us about your process.
So, yeah.
Yes. I thank you, Susan, for the question, and and I'll preface what I'm going to say with two prongs. One, my newness to the community, as well as enrollment not being necessarily tightly within my wheelhouse. That said, what I have come to learn about the Hopkinton Public Schools and what I'm working closely with Dr. Kavanaugh on, as well as our school committee and the rest of our leadership team, is doing just what you're talking about. How can we be more in tune with what our projections are, and how can we not be chasing space, chasing numbers, chasing seats, things like that? You see a couple of things happening. I know it was mentioned tonight. As we speak, the Elmwood building project, the elementary school building committee team is meeting and talking about what our next steps are going to be as we move through the building of a new school. I think that project is an example of us thinking I hate the phrase outside the box, but I'll use it. Thinking outside the box in how we are going to plan accordingly. We could be replacing a school and saying, all right, Elmwood educates our second and third graders. We need a second and third grade school. Instead, we're looking at options that include expanding the number of grades that school, that building will serve, which of course then cascades into how we can adjust other sites to create more space. So I'm really excited about what that means. Of course, every single square foot that you add is linked to $1, and we're mindful of that. But to your original question, Susan, about making those projections accurate, I think we keep getting better. And I don't mean that just about Hopkinton. I think about all of the metrics that are used across the Commonwealth for districts that are measuring growth or who might be on the opposite end and thinking about how they're reducing or shuttering buildings and facilities. I think we're getting better at it. I think that we learned through the Marathon Project, which many of you were here for, I was not, that we worked with MSBA to actually help them refine how they allow for building based on projections. And that's something that Hopkinton can be very proud of. So I think we're going to continue being part of that conversation, and we're going to continue to lean into every resource we have available to make those decisions so that we're not chasing our tails, so to speak.
Jeff, if I can ask that as a follow-up from this, you put that half pager or one pager together on the methods that are being used by the school district, and then we pass that over to town hall. These will all be follow-ups that will be available along with the video of this presentation. Shahidul, you're next.
Hi, thank you all for joining us tonight. I'm really excited to see so many dedicated town employees and dedicated and brilliant minds together talking about the strategy, goals, and town's future. So thank you all, and this is really exciting, and as just a few times powerful. So looking forward to hear more, work with all the committees as much as we can support and where we can support from the select board, and feel free to reach out to us, and we'll do the same through various liaisons and other efforts. The question I had was actually partially covered by Susan's question related to our forecast and capacity. So specifically for school and also extending to Parks and Rec and Fire DPW, which is looking at our growth projections. And I think we are, and I know we are doing a lot of good stuff to meet those projections and manage, maintain, and improve our service levels. But especially for schools, as I'm getting more and more involved with the elementary school building design and planning, I realized more, I think, realistically that there is a significant lag between extending the capacity. So the question is, as we look at the future, and as we project it with our current plan for new build out, new extensions and whatnot, do you feel that we are doing enough to meet our foreseeable future with the foreseeable projections. So that's for school, and Jeff would like to hear from you. And then extending that to Jay on Park and Rec, with a lot of enthusiasm around Park and Rec, and you and your team are doing brilliant job and really made it a athletic town in so many ways. So I appreciate that. And with that in mind, again, the growth will require and need more and more, put more and more demand on our facilities, on our availability, as you have experienced, and I personally also experienced at times. What is the strategic view of that? And is there something that you are thinking or working on to manage that, in 5 years, 10 years from now? How many fields, how many facilities, what type of, sports, and looking at the trends, how we can start to build those out? Because kudos to our town's growth and the real estate, it's going to get more and more difficult to acquire those in future. So probably it's a good time to think about those now, and look into a little bit further than where we are. So I'll pause there and let Jeff and then Jay speak. Thank you all again.
Jeff, what have you got in terms of trends and predicting out 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so in reference to my response to Susan's question, similar. It's a hard game to get down. I know that when we look at about the next 8 to 10 years in Hopkinton, it is looking like we are going to gain another 800 students. And when you have a population right now that sits just over 4,000, that's a sizable increase. And there's two things that people think about. There's the addition. Let's take an elementary school, for instance. There's the addition of classrooms. If you're adding, you have X number of fourth grade classrooms, now you have to have Y number of fourth grade classrooms. So there's a square footage factor there that you have to think about. And as you're seeing our work with the Marathon building be, we can add on rooms. The challenge becomes the core spaces that exist. Those are cafeterias, gymnasiums, art rooms, corridors, entrances, bus lines, car loops, things like that. With every cluster of students that's added, that requires an increase in the addition of those core spaces as well. Now, education without adding enrollment growth is an incredibly expensive endeavor, incredibly expensive. Factor into that enrollment growth that parallels not having a street full of empty buildings that we can use for educational purposes. Not many towns do, but there are some. We are not one of them. So that is absolutely a challenge. But if you think about, we are looking to gain up to 20 to 25% more population in our schools in the next 8 to 10 years. It requires a significant investment on the part of the town in order to keep up. We are not going to be able to say to a family, we can't educate you. It's just not something that we can do legally, ethically, and from a moral standpoint, making sure those students are educated in the most optimal situations possible is going to require that we think very carefully. And of course, everyone here tonight is thinking about the factors that impact budgets. We are absolutely doing the same on the school side.
I hear that we've got 800 kiddos we need to prepare for, and that you're doing that in terms of space, and you're also doing that in terms of resourcing. Again, we'll look forward to the methodology used for predicting in a write-up afterwards to help us consider that as we get towards our budgeting process. Jay, how are you predicting the future of Parks and Rec? Any methodology there?
Sure. So most people understand that the expansion of youth sports, and that's playing right in front of our face. Everyone can see that. I think what a lot of people aren't seeing actually is the expansion of adult sports that's now happening as well, with both men's and women's softball, men's and women's pickup soccer, an expanding cricket program. So there's two things that we're doing. The first is looking at our existing properties, our existing facilities, and figuring out how, in what creative ways can we make these facilities multi-use. So one of the things we're doing this year on Pine Field, if everyone knows where Pine Field is, it's currently a Little League field. We're going to reconfigure that, and we're going to move the Little League field to the other side, and then we're going to build a cricket pitch which will be both self-contained fields on the same property. So that's one thing that we're trying to do to be creative. The other thing we're doing is we're looking at the entire Fruit Street parcel, which has, not to get into too much of the muck here, but Fruit Street has designated spaces for a lot of different things. Some of it is dedicated to active recreation. We're gonna fund a master plan for the recreation parcels to determine where can we build fields? Is it possible? What types of fields can we build? And then lastly, my plea to the school committee is, if you're building a school, please build a regulation-sized gymnasium that can accommodate basketball, volleyball, floor hockey. And if you can, build some sort of a field that could accommodate maybe mini soccer 7 versus 7, or intro to archery, or intro to golf, or some athletic space at a school where we can have programming.
We hear it, Jay. We've got that multi-use idea along with your planning, in addition to advocating for our new buildings to take care of Parks and Rec needs. Muriel, what have you got for us?
My family behind me said, I thought you were done. And I know, I promised I was. First of all, I would like to congratulate Jeff. Really, really well done. Welcome to the community. I know that you are new to us, and you're here, and the schools are a big focus of the questions. And I just want to thank you for the ways that you are being really thoughtful in your replies. And it doesn't surprise me, but it's just really wonderful to see. I wanted to also say that the schools have done really, really, really great work to try and get a handle on those projections in a way that we haven't been able to do. And it didn't start with Marathon School. It started way back with Hopkins School. So it's always been a challenge for us. People have been working the problem really hard, but the school has, in the recent years, has really worked it differently, which is to our advantage. So I guess what I really want to say, knowing that we are continuing to face this big growth challenge in the schools, and we all value great schools, we all value providing for our kids, that maybe we also need to think really creatively about what we do in terms of if we're facing another school building, the ways that we look at building that building that ensure that we are not also building another building in a couple of years and another building in a couple of years. We may need to really think differently about the way that we build our schools, knowing the number of kids we have today and knowing the number of kids we expect in the next couple of years. And I just want to throw that out to the community, not directed just at you, Jeff, but to the community. We may really need to do this differently because we haven't solved the puzzle, and we want to take care of our kids. We want to provide great education. And I will also say it troubles me greatly. And this is not throwing any aspersions at anybody, but we have an economic relief fund at within our public schools. So our public schools, with our fees and so forth, are not actually fully accessible to all kids. And I think that's another community problem we have to think about. Our services, bus services, athletic services, all kinds of services need to be fully open to all of our children in order to really consider ourselves a public school that is meeting everybody's needs the way that it should be. So it's a huge challenge, and I welcome everybody to sort of join in, lean in, and help us solve it.
Thank you for the push, Muriel, which brings us to closing remarks. I'll give you a quick question moment, Jeff. If you can do a quick one, we can do it. Otherwise, we got to go to closing remarks. Jeff is going to table that. You can send other questions directly to Town Hall if you want to follow up on today. To those of you watching at home, if you have queries, again, we love you to send those questions to Town Hall or directly to your select board, and they'll take care of them. You can send them to Jeff at the school district. We got some takeaways from today. Norman, what are your concluding remarks? And then I'll give us final words.
I want to take this opportunity to thank the residents, the boards, committees who participated in tonight's all hands meeting. I also want to thank the department heads who have worked very, very hard over the last 2 months to get ready for tonight. What I took from the effort is we continue to work hard. We continue to remain committed to public service. we are very cognizant of the priorities that the town has set for us. And I think one word that I can put out there as summarizing my feelings right now is connections. We are all talking about finding ways to connect with the core desires and what matters most to this community. And we continue doing so. We really welcome the feedback. Amy, thank you for the comments. As John said, this is as long as we're having these conversations openly, we get the opportunity to continue our dialogue and also use these conversations to solve some of the issues that we are dealing with as part of finding ways to improve our processes. Last but not least, we will also, as we have done in the past years, be asking for additional feedback, and please share as much as you can. Thank you.
It's been a privilege to work with all of you tonight. Again, please send feedback on the format. Please send additional questions, and know that the follow-ups from the schools and from finance with some of the data you requested will come. And we're grateful to each of you for making this time this evening. Tell your friends that the recording is out there, and when it's posted, that will be made public. Have a good evening, everybody. Thank you for your gifts and thank you for your service.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.